You know, the power of collecting action figures can be a curious thing. Sometimes it can make you weep, and there are other times it can just make you sing. Which is why in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at NECA's Back to the Future Ultimate Marty McFly. Hey, my name's Kirk, and welcome to the Geek Effect. So, for those of you who don't know me too well, Back to the Future is probably one of my favorite 80s sci-fi films that exist, and also one of my favorite Spielberg films. It's actually a fun fact that my birthday falls on October 21st, which is actually known as Back to the Future Day, so that's pretty sweet. So when I discovered that NECA made figures celebrating the 35th anniversary of the franchise, I just knew that I had to get my hands on one of these figures. This is actually going to be my very first NECA figure, which is pretty exciting because I've always seen them in stores like Target and Walmart, and they make a lot of figures for many different TV shows and movies, but none of them really appeal to me as this would be a great purchase for my first NECA figure, up until now, when I discovered the Back to the Future collection. So I'm actually going to be taking a look at one of the figures from the collection, which is Back to the Future Ultimate Marty McFly. Is actually one of the Martys that they've made because they have a few others from the different films and just different outfits that he's worn throughout the films, along with some other characters from the films as well. This one is based on his appearance from the first Back to the Future movie, and I thought that this would be fitting because with it being the first movie and this being my first NECA video, my first NECA figure, it's just a whole, first time experience going on here, and I thought that would be great. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get a look at this guy. Now before taking a look at this figure, I do want to take a look at the box art very briefly because, as I stated before when looking at the Punisher action figure for the first time, box art can be very important. It helps with the presentation of what you're getting. In this case, it's this NECA action figure here for Marty McFly, and I will say that NECA's approach to box art and just the packaging and everything is pretty nice. The cover art of the box has the movie poster art on the front, and in the bottom right corner you have the label for Back to the Future 35, which is just giving some recognition to the 35th anniversary. The top of the box isn't anything too special, you just have the Back to the Future logo with text under there saying Ultimate Marty McFly, and then you have the DeLorean, or the back of the DeLorean on the side as well. And then on the spine of the box, you also have some more art with the back of the DeLorean, once again, the Back to the Future logo, and then another style text going on for Ultimate Marty McFly. It's when you get to the back that things get a bit more interesting because you have the logo once again, but this time you have shots of the figure in different poses and different scenarios that kind of look like they're fresh out of the movie, and it looks pretty darn awesome. And then you also have a bit of a bio about the movie, which states that Marty McFly and Doc Brown experienced the adventure of a lifetime in an unlikely time machine, as they travel to the past, present, and future, setting off a time-shattering chain reaction that disrupts the space-time continuum. And then at the bottom of these two images, you'll also find some items that it includes, and it states that you'll get a skateboard, guitar, camcorder, backpack, and interchangeable head and hands, which is pretty neat. Then you also have a bit more advertising at the bottom for some of the other figures in the collection, which includes the Marty McFly that comes in this box from 1985, Marty McFly from Tales from Space, Marty McFly from 2015, which is from Back to the Future 2, and then Biff Tannen from 1955, which is from the first Back to the Future movie as well. Now these aren't actually all the figures that are included in this wave or collection that NECA has, because they have one of Marty McFly from Battle of the Bands, and they also have a Doc Brown, and I think there might be some others, I'm not too sure, but there are a couple of others that are out there for Back to the Future when it comes to NECA, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to get my hands on all of these, especially if I do enjoy this figure. Now when you open up the flap on the box, which is different from Marvel Legends because it does use a flap, and the flap just reveals more stuff that looks pretty awesome. You have another side shot or, photo of Marty McFly in a different pose where he has the skateboard and the bag, and then you have the back of the truck that holds the DeLorean inside, so that's a nice shot there. Really like how that looks. And then you have the awesome figure that is Marty McFly from the first Back to the Future movie, and you can just see everything laid out for you to get an idea of what you're going to be getting and how it looks before purchasing the figure, which is a nice thing that I like that NECA does. You have Marty McFly in the center with an alternate head sculpt on the side, you have his camcorder, you have a guitar, you have his Madrid skateboard, and then you also have the backpack, and then 3 interchangeable hands. One of them seems to actually have a pick for the guitar, which looks pretty nice, and the other ones are sort of gripped in a way to hold on to certain items that you'll get from Marty McFly. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this thing open and take a look at the figure up close. So here is Ultimate Marty McFly fresh out of the box, and let me just say that I thought this figure looked pretty neat when I looked at it while it was in the box and everything like that, but once you take it out, it feels like a brand new experience to me. At first glance, I think that NECA really cared about the process of making this figure. You can see all the intricate details and just the textures that went into it, especially with matching the likeness of Michael J. Fox and the character of Marty McFly. They nailed it in that department, and it just looks like an overall amazing figure. When moving in a bit closer, I think that this head sculpt, it looks terrific. NECA did a great job, as I said before, matching the likeness of Marty McFly and matching the likeness of Michael J. Fox. Between all of the details going into things like the hair, the eyebrows, the eyes, and even the nose and, mouth, it just brings this figure to life, and it looks super lifelike, and I love that. Especially when you think of the fact that NECA figures cost about 30 bucks or a little over depending on which one you're getting and what scale. And for something of that price range, it's just insane how much detail you get from this head sculpt and the rest of the figure as well. One of the cool things about NECA is that when it's necessary, they will include alternate head sculpts for the figures, and this Marty McFly comes with an alternate head that has sunglasses on, and this head sculpt looks very close to what you see Marty wear when he's testing out the amplifier with his guitar. The only thing that comes to mind that could possibly improve this figure is if NECA made the lenses on the sunglasses a dark transparency like they are in the film, because then that would have made them even more detailed and more accurate to what you see Marty wear in the film. One more thing I'd like to mention about both head sculpts for this figure is that NECA does a great job handling the skin tones. You can see that it has a bit of red here and there around the ear area, the cheek areas, and even around the other parts of the face. And when you take it all in, it just looks natural, and being the person that I am who loves to pay attention to details, I truly do appreciate the time and consideration that went into this. Moving down towards the torso area, you get to take a look at all of the sculpting done for Marty McFly's clothes, and I can tell that NECA truly paid attention to the design of the clothes from the film because this sculpting looks just like them. It's when you get up close and personal that you can truly appreciate this figure for what it is, because things like the vest, the jean jacket, and even the button-down shirt have a lot of intricate details that make it all up. I also believe that NECA did a great job handling the paint job for this figure's clothing because they have very lifelike colors. There's a lot of shading going on to things like the vest and the jean jacket that bring it all to life. And once you add things like seams and stitches, it just adds on to the realism of this figure and makes me appreciate the time and effort that went into it. Besides the normal issues here and there when it comes to action figures like some paint being missing or not being fully on the figure, there aren't many other issues I can find when looking at the clothing for the torso area. Everything looks pretty well put together in my opinion. Aside from the clothing on the torso, there are some other key features that help to add onto the figure's details, like the hands, and even the watch on Marty's left wrist, which looks just like the watch he wears in the film. I will say that the hands are very detailed as well, because NECA made sure to include things like wrinkles on both the top part of the hand and the fingers. Last but not least, we make our way down towards the lower area of Marty McFly, and that's where we find the jean detailing and even some sneaker detailing as well. At first glance, I think that the sculpting of the jeans are nicely done because you'll spot a lot of wrinkles throughout them, and the shading is handled very well too with the paint job. Then you also have the sneakers, and I will say that these are probably the most detailed and more interesting parts of the lower area because not only do you have a lot of good sculpting going on for the shoelaces and the different parts of the sneakers, but they add these very dirty sort of colors throughout them to make them look worn, and it just makes it even more realistic. When examining the bottom area of the sneakers, you'll find some more dirt-like colors to make them look worn, and it just shows that NECA cares a lot about their paint jobs just as much as they care about their sculpting, which in my opinion guarantees great quality from a NECA figure. Now, although the sneakers are both sculpted and painted to look like the Nike Bruins that Marty wears in the first film, NECA unfortunately didn't have the license to Nike to add their logo on these shoes, so they just painted on a detail that looks reminiscent of it and helps to substitute the situation. One of the key factors to any action figure is its posability, and when it comes to this Marty McFly, I think NECA handles their articulation very well. Starting with the head, you're able to angle it quite a bit, both to the left and to the right, and also in a bit of a diagonal angle, both left and right as well. You can lean it back a bit, but not too much because the jacket or the vest is blocking it from leaning back. but you are able to lean it forward slightly, and the same rule applies when you're using the alternate head sculpt that has the sunglasses. Both arms have some articulation as well because you can angle them both up and down and rotate them 360 degrees, along with the individual joint sections like the elbow and the forearm. Both of the sockets in the forearms allow you to rotate the hands 360 degrees, and all of the hands included in this pack have pegs which allow you to angle them up and down. Unfortunately, the waist area of this figure doesn't have much articulation. You can't turn it to the left or right to get some interesting poses, and although you can bend the waist area forward slightly, it doesn't hold in place, so that is a bit of a bummer. Moving on down towards the leg area, you'll find some more articulation, starting with the thighs. They're able to angle upward as if Marty is kicking something or perhaps pushing on his skateboard. You can also angle them sideways, both up and down, and there is a bit of rotation depending on what angle you have them at. Moving along to the calf area, you're able to rotate them 360 degrees as well as angle them backwards some, which helps with the posing of this figure, and then the ankle joints have some articulation as well. As I mentioned earlier, this figure does come with several accessories, and they're all items that were featured in the first film, which I love. For starters, you get the backpack that Marty McFly carries around with him in the first film, and it looks very close to what you see from the film in my opinion. I just love the sculpting that went into this mold and also the paint job. It makes it look super realistic. I think this actually might be one of my favorite pieces that they included as part of the accessories. When it comes to the strap, NECA used a soft plastic which makes it easy for Marty to grip it in one of the alternate hands that comes in this pack, and also if you're to put it on his right shoulder, it fits very nicely on there. It's more so designed to actually fit on the right shoulder instead of the left side, but that's not a big deal in my opinion because that's more accurate to how he wears it in the film. Moving along, we have the guitar that Marty uses at the start of the film to test out the amplifier, and I'll say that this looks very close to the real thing. The real life guitar that this is based on is called the Erlewine Chiquita, and I'll say that if you look at this in comparison to that model, it looks very close to the real thing with all the guitar string details and the shaping of the guitar and even the strap. Something to take note of though is that the headstock on the guitar does detach from the neck, so if you're taking this out of the pack, you want to be very careful not to lose this thing because it is a very small piece, but in the unfortunate event that it does detach, you can easily put it back together using the peg attachments located on both parts. Now, just like the strap on the backpack, the guitar strap is actually made using a soft plastic too, so when you're fitting it on Marty's shoulder, it has a very natural look in my opinion. And if you're looking to get some cool poses of Marty playing the guitar, you can use one of the interchangeable hands that has a gripping position because it holds into the guitar's neck very nicely, and then once you have the other hand using the guitar pick, it looks absolutely amazing. Next up, we have Marty's skateboard from the first film, and I must say that this looks very close to what you see in that movie. It's sculpted to look just like the Madrid Volterra used in the film, and I will say that NECA did a great job with the sculpting, and especially with the paint job on this deck, because it looks very close to what you see in the film. Now, besides the amazing paint job and the sculpting of this skateboard, I will say that my favorite part of it is the fact that the wheels can actually turn. It's not necessary in the slightest, but it does show that NECA cares about the quality of their products and what they're delivering to the fans of the film and just people that love collecting action figures in general. Last but not least, you have the camcorder that Marty McFly uses to record Doc Brown while they're testing out the DeLorean at Twin Pines Mall. The camcorder has a lot of intricate details throughout it, and it just looks very nice all together. Now, if you're looking to pose Marty as if he's using the camcorder, you can do so using the strap on the side of it, as well as the left interchangeable hand that has more of a grip, because when you slide it into the strap, it has a very snug fit. The cool thing about the accessories though is that you can use more than one, so say if you want to have Marty wearing the backpack and holding the skateboard at the same time, you can do that. There's just several other combinations that you can kind of create with it and get some nice shots of the figure. Well, that pretty much wraps up this review of NECA's Ultimate Marty McFly from the first Back to the Future movie. In my opinion, I think that this is a very solid figure, and NECA nails it when it comes to matching the likeness of Michael J. Fox, matching the likeness of Marty McFly as a character. It looks super close to Marty McFly, and I just love that. I also like a lot of the accessories that came in this pack, like the backpack, the camcorder, and the skateboard, and some of the other stuff like the swappable hand and guitar. I just think that NECA, really does care about the quality of their figures from what I can tell with this one, and it kind of encourages me to get more from this collection of Back to the Future and maybe even take a look at some of the others that they have for other movies like Terminator and The Thing, just other stuff like that kind of appeals to me. If you're a big Back to the Future fan too, I would even recommend picking this up as a fan of the movie because it's just a nice display piece to have in my opinion, especially if you like collecting action figures or just Back to the Future memorabilia in general. One thing I will add on though in regards to the packaging is that inside the box there is a backdrop that you can see when you open up the flap of the box, and it has the DeLorean in the back of the truck, and you have some parts of the Twin Pine Mall, and it does slide out of the box. So I don't know if this was intentional, but even if it wasn't, it would make a nice backdrop to have on the shelf if you want to use it as that. Or if you're looking to do some toy photography, it could also work for that. So if that's what NECA was thinking of when adding this in there, kudos to them, because, you know, that shows that they're really going the extra mile with their figures, and they're really thinking about the, you know, sort of more adult community that likes to take photography of the figures and do the whole sort of editing and everything in regards to that. Now I do actually have 3 more figures that I have left to review here on the channel eventually, and that will all be done in due time. I have the Retro Electro and Retro J. Jonah Jameson from the Retro Spider-Man line, and I also have the Retro Dazzler from the Uncanny X-Men Retro line. So those are some figures that I'll be taking a look at eventually here on the channel, and I can't wait to work on those videos. But with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Be sure to go ahead and give it a thumbs up if you did, and perhaps even share it with a family member or friend that enjoys this type of content. My name's Kirk, thank you all for watching The Geek Effect, and I'll catch you all later. Peace out.